Right now, somewhere on Earth, over 1 billion people are squatting to relieve themselves. Not sitting, squatting, low to the ground, knees bent all the way up. And for almost all of human history, every single person who ever lived did exactly the same thing. Every hunter, every farmer, every king, every child. Then, a few hundred years ago, one culture invented a completely different way to do this. A chair with a hole in it, and it changed something inside your body that you have probably never once thought about. Here's a question you have probably never asked yourself. Are you actually doing this correctly? Not correctly like manners, correctly like your own anatomy was built to work a completely different way, and modern life quietly changed that on you, without ever asking. Let's start with what's actually happening inside your body right now, whether you're sitting, standing, or reading this on the toilet at this exact moment. Deep inside you, there's a muscle called the puborectalis. It wraps around the lower part of your rectum like a sling, and its entire job is to hold that final section slightly bent, kinked, almost like a garden hose folded sharply at an angle. Most of the time, this kink is a good thing. It's part of what keeps you continent, what stops things from happening at the wrong moment in the wrong place. But when it's actually time to go, that same kink becomes an obstacle. A bent tube doesn't empty easily. Something has to straighten it out first. When you squat, knees pulled up toward your chest, that muscle relaxes on its own, and the angle straightens out almost completely. The path becomes close to a straight line. When you sit on a raised seat with your hips bent at roughly 90 degrees, the muscle stays partially engaged. The kink stays, and your body has to work around that kink, using pressure, straining, and time you didn't need to spend. For roughly 300,000 years of human history, nobody sat on anything to do this. You squatted over a hole, a riverbank, a patch of open ground, or later, a simple pit dug into the earth. The first known flushing toilet was invented in 1596 by a man named John Harrington, built for Queen Elizabeth I. It didn't catch on. For centuries afterward, most of the world, including most of Europe, kept using some version of a hole in the ground. The sit-down toilet you grew up with didn't become common in ordinary homes until the late 1800s and early 1900s, alongside the spread of indoor plumbing. Compared to the entire span of human existence, that's an almost impossibly tiny sliver of time. If all of human history were compressed into a single day, the sitting toilet has existed for about the last 4 seconds of that day. So here's the question almost nobody ever asks. What does roughly 100 years of sitting the wrong way actually do to a body built for something else? In the 1970s, a British doctor named Dennis Burkitt noticed something strange while working in rural Africa. In the communities he studied, where people still used pit latrines and squatted daily, certain conditions were almost unheard of. Hemorrhoids, diverticulitis, chronic constipation. In Western countries, using sit-down toilets and eating a completely different diet, those same conditions were extremely common. Burkitt originally credited this mostly to diet, and diet absolutely plays a massive role. We'll get to that in a moment. But decades later, researchers dug deeper into posture specifically. In a study published in 2003, physician Berko Sikirov measured exactly how long it took real people to empty their bowels in different positions. The squatting position took an average of 51 seconds. The sitting position took an average of 130 seconds, more than double the time, and required noticeably more straining to finish the job. Straining that hard, that often, for years on end, has been linked by multiple studies to a higher risk of hemorrhoids, and possibly to pelvic floor strain over time. Doctors today sometimes recommend a small footstool under a sitting toilet to mimic a squat, especially for patients who are pregnant, elderly, or dealing with chronic constipation, because it works. Your ancient ancestors never needed a footstool. Their bodies were already doing exactly what they were built to do, every single day, without a single specialist ever getting involved. And this isn't just theoretical. If you have ever watched a toddler who hasn't been toilet trained yet, you've probably already seen this instinct in action. Left alone, without ever being taught, small children will often squat down fully on their own. Flat feet, knees near their chest, the exact posture doctors are now recommending adults go back to. Nobody teaches a 2-year-old to do this. It's not learned. It's closer to a reflex, one that gets slowly trained out of most children the moment they're introduced to a standard sitting toilet. Right now, across the world, it's estimated that roughly 1.2 billion people still use some form of squat toilet as their primary method, largely across Asia, the Middle East, and parts of Africa. In many of those regions, a raised sitting toilet is considered the unusual option, sometimes even the less hygienic one, since it involves direct contact with a shared surface that a squat toilet avoids entirely. From that point of view, you're not the default. You're the regional exception. And it isn't only posture. Your gut itself is working with completely different raw material than theirs ever did. A typical modern Western diet averages somewhere around 15 grams of fiber a day. Researchers studying the Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the last true hunter-gatherer populations left on Earth, found their daily fiber intake was over 100 grams, more than 6 times higher than yours. More fiber means more volume moving through your system, softer material, and a transit time through your entire digestive tract that is dramatically faster. Some researchers estimate hunter-gatherer transit time at under 24 hours from meal to output. In modern populations, eating a typical low-fiber diet, that same transit time can stretch past 48 to 72 hours. That's not a small gap. That means food waste can sit inside your body up to 3 times longer than it ever sat inside theirs. Even the very last step of the process would look completely foreign to you. Mass-produced toilet paper didn't exist until 1857, and it didn't become a normal household item until the early 1900s. Before that, and still today across large parts of the world, humans used whatever their environment offered. Water, often using the hand, and considered by many cultures to be the more hygienic method, still standard practice for a majority of the world's population right now. Leaves, moss, smooth river stones. In ancient Rome, a shared sponge on a stick, rinsed and passed from person to person in public latrines. Compared to any of that, a soft roll of paper feels less like a household item, and more like a quiet miracle nobody appreciates. So the next time you sit down, quite literally, consider this. Your body was never designed for the position you're probably using right now. It was built for a full squat, knees drawn up toward your chest, the exact same posture every single one of your ancestors used for roughly 300,000 uninterrupted years. That posture is still completely normal for the majority of people alive on Earth today. Statistically speaking, you are the unusual one in this story, not them. There's a reason small plastic stools, designed specifically to lift your feet and angle your knees upward while using a completely ordinary sitting toilet, have quietly turned into a multi-million-dollar industry over the last 15 years. People, one search result and one skeptical purchase at a time, are rediscovering something their own bodies already knew for 300,000 years before anyone ever needed to explain it to them. And there's one more detail worth knowing, if you've made it this far. The oldest known flush-style toilet wasn't built in Europe at all. Archaeologists excavating a royal tomb from China's Han Dynasty, over 2,000 years old, found a stone seat fitted with running water and even armrests, built for an emperor's private use, roughly 1,600 years before John Harrington's version. And in ancient Rome, using a public latrine came with its own peculiar fear. People genuinely worried about creatures crawling up through the openings underneath them, and prayed to Cloacina, the actual Roman goddess of the sewer system, for protection before sitting down. Compared to that, your biggest bathroom worry is probably just running out of paper. If this made you think about something you have genuinely never once considered before, hit like and subscribe. Bob Wonders has a lot more questions to ask.